Good morning, everyone. Hello, 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 hello. Good morning, everyone. Hello, today we are at a very new venue, which is at the Noah Coco Place. And we don't have a lot of attendees today. I think it's because it's a Saturday, but that's completely fine. I will still read, and then for those who couldn't make it to the venue today, no worries. You can still look at the VOD that I will keep and highlight in my Twitch channel, and also my YouTube channel as well. So how are you all doing this morning? Good morning, Tian. Thank you for being here with me as always. Let's do a little like chit chat before we start reading, okay? So this morning I made a very nice cup of coffee, and I was a bit rushing actually because I have a very bad habit of like waking up really early, like 7 a.m. and then just lay in bed for like 2 hours, and then after that I will be like rushing around trying to get things done, like get my breakfast and all that done. But now all is good. Okay, I have my tea with me, and my favorite tea is genmaicha, which is like roasted rice green tea. It's just really really nice. I really like it. What's your favorite tea, Dian? If you have any favorite tea, or anyone in chat, really tell me what's your favorite tea. Don't be shy. And then I made a sandwich. Oh, I see an attendee. Hang on. Oh, it's Flynn. Hey, it's Flynn. Can't target Flynn for some reason. Bow. Thank you for coming over, Flynn. Thank you so much. You don't drink tea? Fruit tea is really good. You know what I like? Like, you know how people are crazy about bubble tea? But when I go to I never crave for bubble teas. What I usually like is like those fruit teas from bubble tea that they put like jelly in it, like something called IU jelly or passion fruit seeds. Like I will like if my friends are like, hey, let's get bubble tea, I'm craving for bubble tea, and go to a bubble tea shop, I don't order bubble tea because I don't really care for bubble tea that much. So what I would do would order fruit tea, basically, like passion fruit tea, passion fruit green tea, passion fruit jasmine tea. Yeah, that type of tea, and with like jelly in it. I don't like those like chewy bubbles. Like I like chewy stuff. I like mochi and stuff, but and I rarely like what you call it those bubbles. I feel like it's like empty calorie. It's like it's just starch basically. You're just eating starch. Like I don't know. I prefer jelly like konnyaku and all that. And jelly like for example like konnyaku is like 0 calories, so you can consume a lot of it and it's still chewy and nice. I don't know. I love it. I that's the kind of drinks that I will order in like a bubble tea shop. Fruit teas. I'm a weird one. I don't really like bubble tea. Like bubble milk tea especially. Like I love milk, but I will drink milk on its own. But it's like milk in other things like milk tea. Milk I like milk tea too, but like I feel like sometimes I like to taste the tea as the tea is and not like being like all convoluted by milk. Like because when you drink a tea, right, if you add milk to it, not just tea, like coffee as well, if you add milk into it, it's just changed the taste of the thing. I mean, of course, obviously, like that's the point. You want a different taste of the tea, right? But I really prefer if it's like uh just taste the tea, you know? Fruit tea is the best. I see. Oh, Coco is very smart. Coco saw my stream and changed position. Oh, I think I know who that is. Statsamina Pinku. Good morning. Good morning, Taza. Thank you so much once again for coming here. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Come sit over here. I'm just like chatting with everyone before we start. We will start in about 5 minutes, alright? Oh, thank you so much, Taza. Thank you. No, Taza, come over here to beside to Coco and Deanne. Because I'm facing my camera over there. Yeah. Over there. Yeah, perfect. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for obliging my request. I'm such a bossy person. Oh, we have another guest today. May I know who it is? Let me see. It's very hard to target when I'm like really far. Who is it? I can't target. Go. I can't target this person. I feel really bad. No, go away. It's hiding. Wait. Okay, it's gonna be. Oh, this place is so hot. Okay, it's Lixie. Lixie. Thank you for attending my little book club. I mean, not book club, but you know, like just a audible session. Hello there. Hello. Thank you so much for attending. Hello, Rico. I think I remember you. I think you were here the last time. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you. Okay, since we have like quite an audience right now, I think I'm gonna start. Is that alright with everyone? Yeah? Yeah. Okay, now I remember why I remember Rico. She always sits on Tazamina's lap. Alright. Is that right? Yeah? Alright. Let's do a little. Alright, it's 10 past 10. I think it's a very perfect time to start the reading. Okay. Okay. I'm a bit nervous as usual, but I hope you all don't mind. I'm going to try to read a little bit slower today because I have a little feedback in the last time that sometimes I speed up. But the reason why I speed up It's because I'm very, very nervous. So, let's take a sip of tea. And we shall start. Okay, for those who had just arrived in my Twitch or in game, today we are continuing Natsume Sōseki's I am a cat. 吾輩は猫である. Natsume Sōseki's first novel, I believe, published in 3 volumes, and we have finished the first volume 2 days ago, and today we are starting volume 2, chapter 1. We will attempt to finish up chapter 1 today. Alright. It has become my usual practice to I sneak into the Goldfields mansion. I won't expand upon the meaning of my use of usual, which is merely a word expressing the square of often. What one does once, one wants to do it again, and things tried twice invite a third experience. This sense of inquiry is not confined to humanity, and I must ask you to accept that every cat born into this world is endowed with this psychological peculiarity. Just as in the human case, so with cats. Once we have done a thing more than 3 times over, the act becomes a habit, and its performance a necessity of our daily life. If you should happen to wonder why I so often visit the Goldfields place, let me first address a modest inquiry to mankind. Why do human beings breathe smoke in through their mouth and then expel it through the nose? Since such shameless inhalation and exhalation can do little to ease the belly's hunger and less to cure giddiness, I do not see why a race of habitual smokers should dare to offer criticism of my calls on the Goldfields. That house is my tobacco. To say that I sneak in gives a misleading impression. It sounds vaguely reprehensible, a term used to be used for the self-insinuations of thieves and clandestine lovers. Though it is true that I am not an invited guest, I do not go to the Goldfields in order to snitch a slice of bonito or for a cozy chat with a disgusting lapdog whose eyes and nose are convulsively agglomerated in the center of its face. Hardly. Or are you suggesting that I visit there for the sheer love of snooping? Me? A detective? You must be out of your mind. Among the several most degrading occupations in this world, there are, in my opinion, none more grubby than those of the detective and the money-lender. It is true that once, for cold moon's sake, I displayed a chivalrous spirit unbecoming in a cat, and kept an indirectly watchful eye on the Goldfields going-ons. It was but once that I acted with such ill-placed kind-heartedness, and since that isolated occasion, I have done nothing whatsoever that could bring a twinge to the conscience of the most pernickety cat. In which case, you may ask, why did I describe my own actions with such an unpleasantly suggestive phrase as to sneak in? I have my own good reasons, but their explanation involves analysis in depth. In the first place, it is my opinion that the sky was made to shelter all creation, and that the earth was made so that all things created that were able to stand might have something to stand on. Even those human beings who love arguments for this arguing's sake could surely not deny this fact. Next, we may ask to what extent did human effort contribute to the creation of heaven and earth, and the answer is that it contributed nothing. What right then do human beings hold to decide things not of their own creation, nevertheless belong to them? Of course, the absence of right need not prevent such creatures from making that decision, but surely there can be no possible justification for them prohibiting others from innocent passage in and out of so-called human property. If it be accepted that Mr. So-and-so may set up stakes, fence off sections of this boundless earth, and register that area as his own, what is to prevent such persons from roping off blue sky, from staking claims on heaven and enclosure of the air? If natural law permitted proprietorial parceling out of the land and its sale and purchase at so much the square foot, then it would also permit partition of the air we breathe at so much the cubic unit and its three-dimensional sale. If, however, 1 second please, I forgot to turn off my Discord notifications out. Okay. Tea. Alright. Sorry for the interruption. Okay. If, however, it is not proper to trade in sky, if enclosure of the empyrean is not regarded as just in natural law, then surely it must follow that all land ownership is unnatural and irrational. That, in fact, is my conviction. Therefore, I enter wherever I like. Naturally, I do not go anywhere where I do not want to go. But, provided they are in the direction I fancy, all places are alike to me. I slope along as it suits me and feel no inhibition about entering the properties of people like the goldfields, as if I happen to want to. However, the sad fact is that, being no more than a cat, I cannot match mankind in the crude matter of physical strength. In this real world, the saying that might is right has a very real force. So much so that no matter how sound my arguments may be, the logic of cats will not command respect. Were I to press the argument too far, I should be answered like rickshaw Blackie with a swipe from a fishmonger's pole. In situations where reason and brute force are opposed, that one may choose either to submit by a perversion of reason, or to achieve one's reasonable ends by outwitting the opposition, I would of course adopt the latter course. If one is not to be maimed by bamboo poles, one must put up with things, one must press on. Thus, since the concept of trespass is irrational, and since sneaking in is only a form of pressing on, I am prepared to describe my visits as sneaking in, though I have no wish whatsoever to spy on the goldfields. Inevitably, as the number of my visits mount, I get to know things about that family which I would rather not have known, and I see happenings which willy-nilly I cannot purge from my memory. I am, for instance, regretfully aware that when Madame Conk dabs water on her face, she wipes her nose with inordinate care. that Miss Opula persistently gluts herself on rice cakes dusted with bean flour, and that old man Goldfield, in striking contrast with his wife, has a nose as flat as pancake. Indeed, not just his nose, but his whole face is flat. It is a face so leveled, one suspects that when he was a lad, he must have got into a fight with the strong boy of some children's gang who, grabbing him by the scruff of his neck, rammed his face so hard against a plaster wall that even now, 40 years on, his squashed and crumpled features are a living memento of that unlucky day. Though it is certainly an extremely peaceful, even a harmless, even sorry, even a harmless face, it is somewhat lacking in variety. However much that face becomes infuriated, still it stays flat. I came to learn, moreover, that old man Goldfield likes tuna fish, sliced and raw. That whenever he eats that delicacy, he pats himself on his bald pate with that plashy pattering sound. Further, because his body is as squat as his face is flat, he affects tall hats and high-stepped wooden clocks. Facts which his personal rickshaw-man finds so vastly entertaining that he is always yattering on about them to the houseboy, who, for his part, finds such sharp accuracy of observation impressively remarkable. I could go on forever with such details of the Goldfields' ongoings. It has become my practice to enter the garden by the back gate, and to survey the lie of the land from the cover of a small artificial mound helpfully constructed there for decorative purposes. Having made sure that everything is quiet and that all paper windows are slit shut, I gingerly creep forward and hop up onto the veranda. But if I hear lively voices and consider there's a risk I might be seen from within, I mosey off eastward around the pool, nip past the lavatory, and finish up safe and unobserved under the veranda. My conscience is in no way troubled, but I have nothing to hide and no reasons to be scared of anything whatsoever. But I've learned what to expect if one should have the ill luck to run up against one of those lawless and disorderly bipeds. Were the human world crammed jam with robot toughs as violent as that long-departed villain Kumasaka Chohan, then even the most illustrious and virtuous of men would act as cautiously as I do. Inasmuch as old man Goldfield is a dignified sort of businessman, I wouldn't expect him to come after me with such dirty great sword, 5 feet 3 inches of it, they tell me, as Kumasaka was wont to brandish. However, from what I've seen and heard, Goldfield has his own unpleasant quirks and is certainly not disposed to accept that a man's a man for that. If Goldfield is overbearing as his fellow man, how would he treat a cat? A cat, as I keep on saying, is also a cat for a that. But given Goldfield's nature, even a feline of the most upright virtues would be wise to adopt a low posture and a very cautious attitude once inside the Goldfields' premises. This very need to be constantly, I find delightful, and my taste for danger explains why I find these frequent risky visits. I will give further and careful thought to this fascinating point, and when I have completed my analysis of cat mentality, I will publish the result. What's up today, I wonder, as I settle my chin against the grass on top of the garden hillock and survey the prospect spread below me. The doors of the ample drawing room are open wide to the full spring day, and I can see inside the Goldfields busily engaged in conversation with a guest. I am somewhat daunted by the fact that Madame Kong's proboscis is pointed directly in my direction. It glares across the pond straight at my unprotected forehead. This is my first experience of being glared by a nose. Facing his guest, Old Man Goldfield presents himself to my gaze in full profile. My eyes are spared one half of his flattened features, but for the same prolific reason, the location of his nose is indeterminable, and it is only because one can see where his grayish-white mustache sprouts raggedly from the flesh, and one can deduce that the vent holes of his nostrils must be gaping closely there above. I amuse myself with the reflection that the light spring breeze might well blow on forever if it encountered no more formidable obstruction than that jetless physiognomy. Of the three, the Goldfields guest has the most normal features, but precisely of their regularity there is no facial peculiarity I see reason to point out. For anything to be regular suggests that the thing's all right, but regularity can be so utterly regular as to become, by its very ulteriority, mediocre and of no account, which is extremely pitiable. Give me 1 second, I see new guests. I know who that is. Well, good morning, Tasty. Good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for attending once again. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Alright. Alright. Let's continue. Hello to everyone in my Twitch channel. I'm currently reading Natsume Sōseki's I Am a Cat, Volume 2, Chapter 1. And I am now continuing. I wonder who he is, this unfortunate fellow, fated to be born in this glorious reign behind so meaningless a fist. My curiosity can't be satisfied unless I crawled more close, and in my accustomed manner, established myself underneath the veranda and listened to what is said, so under it I go. And my wife actually took the trouble to call the man to ask for information. As usual, Old Man Goldfield speaks in an arrogant manner. The manner is certainly prideful, but his voice contains no hint of sharpness. It gives, like his face, an impression of massive flatness. Ah, I see. So he's the fellow who used to teach your Mr. Avalon Coleman. I see. Yes, yours is a good idea, indeed, I see. This guest is positively overflowing with I sees. But somehow my wife's approaches all prove pretty pointless. No wonder. Sneeze is not strong on point. Wait, hang on. No wonder Sneeze is not strong on point, even these days when he and I shared digs and look after ourselves. His lack of point, his lack of resolution were was painfully extreme. You must, he said, turning to Madame Kong, have had a difficult time. Difficult? That's hardly the word. Never in my life have I made a visit so been badly treated. As if her ugly custom, Madame Kong snorted storm winds down her snout. Did he say anything rude to you? He's always been obstinate, a real old stick in the mud. He's been teaching that English reader for years without a break, so you can imagine. With what charm and tact this guest is making himself agreeable. He's beyond help. He's beyond help. I understand that every time my wife asks a question, he receives a blunt rebuff. What impudence! As I see it, a person of small education. Wait, hang on. Sometimes I don't. Okay. What impudence! As I see it, persons of small education tend to grow conceited, and if they happen also to be poor, their characters become as bitter as sour grapes. Indeed, some people in that condition turn truly quite absurd. For no reasons at all, they flare up at persons of wealth, as if unconscious of their own total ineffectiveness. It's quite astonishing how they behave, as if the rich had robbed them personally of things they never owned. The guest's laughter rang out affectedly, but he certainly seems delighted with himself. Scandalous behavior! It's because they know nothing of the world and that they carry on so outrageously. So I thought I'd taken him down a peg or two. It's time he learned how many beans make six. I see. Splendid. That should shaken him up a bit. Done him no end of good. Goldfield is smothered in his guest's congratulations, even though the sycophant still lacks this least of idea, the kind of rod which Goldfields put in pickle for poor Sneeze. But really, Mr. Suzuki, Sneeze is impossible, do you know? Said Madame Conk. Down at his school he won't exchange 2 words with our friend Mr. Fukuchi. Nor, come to think of it, with Mr. Tsuki either. We thought he had learned his lesson, and was keeping quiet because he knew he has been set on. But would you believe it? Only the other day we heard he had been chasing after our harmless houseboy with the walking stick. Just imagine that. He's a man of 30. No sane grown-up could act in such a way. Perhaps, she ended hopefully, despair has driven him dotty. But what can have driven him to such an act of violence? Their guest seems mystified that Sneeze could act so firmly. Nothing much, really. It seems that our houseboy happened to be passing Sneeze's place, made some innocent remark, and before you could say Jack Robinson, Sneeze came rushing out in his bare feet and began lashing around with his stick. Whatever the houseboy may have said, he is, after all, no more than a boy. But Sneeze is a bearded man and more supposed to be a teacher. Some teacher, said the guest. Some teacher, echoed Goldfield. It would seem that this precious trio has reached complete agreement that if one happens to be a teacher, one should, like some wooden statue, grin and bear whatever insults anyone cares to offer. And then, said Madame Conk, there's a thieving crank called Waverhouse. I've never heard a man tell such stream of whoppers. All quite pointless, but all flat lies. Really, I've never clapped my eyes on such a loony in my life. Waverhouse? Yes, he seems to be bragging as usual. Was he also there when you called on Sneeze? He too can be a tricky customer. He was another of our group in digs. I remember I was always having rows with him on account of his incessant, ill-judged mockery and his warped sense of humor. A man like that would rile a saint. We all, of course, tell lies, sometimes out of loyalty, sometimes by demand of occasion, and in such circumstances anyone may fairly bend the truth, but that man Waverhouse tells his lies for no good reasons at all. What can one do with a man like that? I just can't see how he brings himself to rattle off such reams of barefaced balderdash. What does he expect to gain from it? You've hit the nail on the head. There's nothing one can do when a man tells lies for a hobby. I made a special visit to that miserable house to ask no more than the normal questions about Avalon that any other mother would, but all my efforts came to nothing. They vexed me, they put me down, but all the same, I felt obliged to do the decent thing. So afterward, I sent all our rickshaw men around with a dozen bottles of beer. Can you imagine what happened? That saucy usher Sneeze had the cheek to order our men to take the bottles away because he said he saw no reasons why he should accept them. Our fellow pressed him to take the bottles as a token of our appreciation. So then Sneeze said that he liked jam, but reckoned beer is too bitter. Then he just shut the door and went back to his room. Now can you beat that? How damn rude can one get? That's terrible. This guest seems this time genuinely to think it's really terrible. After a brief pause, I hear the voice of old man Schofield. And that's in fact precisely why we have asked you here today. It's something, of course, to make fun of that fool's knees behind his back. But that sort of thing doesn't entirely suit our present purpose. Splash, spatter, splash, spatter, splash. He's patting his pate as though he's just been eating sliced raw tuna fish. Of course, being tucked away underneath the veranda, I cannot actually see him beating that wet tattoo on the skin of his hairless head, but I've seen so much of him lately, just as a priestess in a temple gets to recognize the sound of each particular wooden gong, so I can tell from the quality of that wood, that sound, even though I'm under the floor, when old man Goldfield takes to drumming on his skull. And it occurred to me to ask for your assistance in this matter. And if I can be any service, please do not hesitate to ask me. After all, it is entirely due to your kind influence that I have had the great good fortune to be transferred to the Tokyo office. The guest is so obviously anxious to oblige that he must be another of those many persons under obligations to return some form of help to the Goldfields. Well, the plot thickens. I wandered out today simply because the weather was so wonderful, and I certainly had not expected to stumble upon such exciting news of planned skullduggery. It is as though one had gone to the family temple dutifully, intending to feed the hungry dead, only to find oneself invited to a rite of all lashed up of rice cake dumplings and bean paste jam in the private room of a priest. Wondering what kind of assistance will sought from his client guest, I pricked my ears to listen. Yes, a short break to move my character around. Is anyone sitting on top there? Or anything? No? Okay, I'm gonna aim my camera angle here so I can see everyone. Okay? And I'm gonna mute for a second to have a drink of tea. And I'm back. Don't ask me to explain it, but that neat-witted teacher keeps planting crazy notions in the head of young Coleman. Like, for instance, hinting that he shouldn't marry any daughter of mine. He turned to his wife. That's what he hinted, didn't he? Hinting's not the word. he said flat out loud. No one in his senses would ever marry a daughter of that creature. Cold Moon, he said, you simply mustn't marry her. Well, blow me down. Did he really have that brazen cheek to speak of me as a creature? Did he really pitch it as strong as that? Not half he didn't. The wife of the rickshaw man came around and double quick just to be sure I knew. Well, there you are, Suzuki. That man's niece is getting to be a nuisance, wouldn't you agree? How extremely irritating. Marriage negotiations are not matters in which to be meddled lightly. Surely, even the dunderhead like Sneeze ought to have the common sense to know that. Really, the whole thing's beyond my comprehension. In your undergraduate days, you lived in the same boarding house as Sneeze, and though things may have changed by now, I understand that you too then used to be pretty pally. Now, what I want you to do is to go and see Sneeze and try to talk some reason into him. He may be feeling offended, but if he is, it's really all his own full fault. If he plays ball, I'll be willing to give him generous help with his personal affairs, and we would, of course, lay off annoying him. But if he keeps on gumming things up the way he's so far done, it will only be natural if I find ways of my own to settle the meddlesome hash. In short, it just won't pay him to go on acting obstinate. How very right of you. Continued resistance on his part would be idiotic. It could bring him no possible profit and could well cause him loss. I'll do my best to make him understand. One more thing. Since there are many other suitors for our daughter, I can't make any firm promise of giving her to Cold Moon, but you could usefully go so far as to hint that if he studies hard and gets his degree in the near future, he stands a chance of winning her. That should encourage him to buckle down to study. All right, I'll do as you wish. One last thing. It may sound odd, but what especially sticks in my gullet is the way that Cold Moon, who's supposed to be so smart, laps up everything that Sneeze lets drop. Even goes around addressing that crack-brained ninny as though he were some kind of sage professor. Of course, since Cold Moon's not the only man we are considering for our puller, such unbecoming conduct is not of vast importance, nevertheless. You see, squawked Madame Conk, butting in on her husband's careful sentence. It's just that we are sorry for Cold Moon. I've never had the pleasure of meeting the gentleman, but since to marry into your Sorry, that's not the madam. So sometimes it's very confusing who is speaking. Sorry. I've never had the pleasure of meeting the gentleman, but since to marry into your distinguished family would be to ensure a lifetime's happiness, I'm quite convinced that he himself could not possibly wish other than the marriage. You're absolutely right, said Madame Conk. Cold Moon's keen to marry her. It's only that numbskull Sneeze and his crackpot crony Waverhouse who keeps throwing spanners in the works. Most reprehensible. Not the style of behavior one expects from any reasonable, well-educated man. I'll go and talk with Sneeze. Please do. We'll be most grateful. Remember, too, that Sneeze knows better than anyone else what Cold Moon's really like. And you know, during her recent call, my wife failed to dig out anything more worth knowing. In addition to ascertaining details of his scholastic talent and all that stuff, you could also find out more about Cold Moon's character and conduct. I'll be particularly obliged. Certainly. Since it's Saturday today, Sneeze must be home by now. Where does he live, I wonder? Says Suzuki. You turn right from our place, then turn left at the end of the road. About 1 block along, you'll see a house with a tumble-down black fence. That, said Madame Conk, is it. So it's right here in the neighborhood. Then it should be easy. I'll go see him on my way home. It'll be simple to identify the house by the nameplate. You may or may not find his nameplate on display. I understand he uses 1 or 2 grains of cooked rice to stick his visit card on his wooden gate. When it rains, of course, the cardboard comes unstuck. Then some convenient sunny day he'll paste another card in the place. So you can't be sure that his nameplate will be up. It's hard to see why he keep to such troublesome routine when obvious thing to do is just hang up a wooden name board. But that, sigh, Madame Kong, is just another example of his general cussedness. Astonishing, remarked Suzuki. But I'll find the place in any case by asking for the house with the black fence in state of disrepair. Oh yes, you'll find it easily enough. There's not another house in the whole neighborhood quite so filthy looking. Wait a minute. I've just remembered something else. Look for a house with weeds growing out of the roof. It's quite impossible to miss. In fact, a quite distinguished residence, said Suzuki and laughing. And he took his leave. It would not suit my book to have Suzuki beat me home. I've already overheard as much as I need to know, so still concealed beneath the veranda, I retraced my steps to the lavatory where, turning west, I briefly break cover to get back behind the hillock and, under its concealment, regain the safety of the street. A brisk cat trot should soon brings me to the house with the weed-grown roof where, with the utmost nonchalance, I hopped onto our own veranda. My master had spread a white woolen blanket on the wooden boards and was lying there, face down, with the sunshine on this warm spring day soaking into his back. Sunshine, unlike other things, is distributed fairly. It falls impartially upon the rich and the poor. It makes a squalid heart, whose only distinction are the tufts of shepherd's purse sprouting from its roof, no less gaily warm than, for all its solid comfort, the Goldfields mansion. I am, however, obliged to confess that the blanket jars with the day-spring feeling. No doubt its manufacturer meant that it should be white. No doubt, too, it was sold as white by some haberdasher specializing in goods imported from abroad. No less certainly my master must have asked for a white blanket at the time when he bought it. But all that happened 12 or 13 years ago, and since that far-off age of white, the blanket has declined into a dark age where its present color is a somber gray. No doubt, the passage of time will eventually turn it black, but I'll be surprised if the thing survives that long. It is already so badly worn that one can easily count the individual thread of its warp and woof. Its wooliness is gone, and it would be an exaggeration, even a presumption, to describe this scrawny, half-eroded object as a blanket. A blend, possibly, even a cat. But a full-blown blanket? No. However, my master holds, at least appears to hold, that anything which has kept for a year, 2 years, 5 years, and eventually for a decade must then be kept for the rest of one's natural life. One would think he were a gypsy. Anyway, what's he doing, sprawling belly down on the remnant of the past? He lies on his chin, stuck out, it juts, supported with the crotch of his hand, with the lighted cigarette projecting from his right hand fingers. And that's all he's doing. Of course, inside his skull, Deep bellow of the dandruff, universal truth may be spinning around in a shower of fiery sparks like so many Catherine wheels. It's possible, but judging from his external appearance, not likely in one's wildest imaginings. The cigarette's lit tip is steadily burning down, and an inch of ash, like some grey caddis case, plopped onto the blanket. My master, ignoring the declension, stares intently at the rising smoke. Stirred by the light spring breeze, the smoke floats up in loops and vortices, finally together in kind of clinging haze around the ends of his wife's just washed black hair. Gentle reader, please accept my apologies. I had completely forgotten to mention the lady's presence. Mrs. Neese is sitting so that her bottom presents itself before her husband's face. You think that's impolite? Speaking for myself, I would not call it so. Both courtesy and discourtesy depend on one's point of view. My master is lying perfectly at ease, with his cup face in close proximity to his wife's bottom. He is neither disturbed by its proximity nor concerned at his own conduct. His wife, equally composed to position her majestic bum bang in her husband's face. There is neither the slightest hint nor intention of discourtesy. They are simply a much-married couple who, less than a year of wedlock, sensibly disengaged themselves from the cramps of etiquette. Mrs. Neese seems to have taken advantage of the exceptionally fine weather to give her pitch-black hair a really thorough wash with a concoction made from raw eggs and some kind of special seaweed. Somewhat ostentatiously, she has let her long straight hair hang loose around her shoulders and all the way down her back, and sits busy and silent, sewing a child's sleeveless jacket. In point of fact, I believe it is purely because she wants to dry her hair that she brought both her sewing box and flattish cushion made from some all-woolen muslin out there. It is similarly to present her hair in the best angle to the sun. Differentially, she presents her bottom to her spouse. That's my belief, but it may, of course, be that my master moved to intrude his face where her bum already was. It's an interesting prose, isn't it? Let me check my surrounding a little bit, move around. That's a lot of bum talk, right? Tea. And I'm back. Let me continue. Now, to return to that business of the cigarette smoke, my master lay watching the fascinated absorption, the way in which the smoke floating upward through his wife's abundant and now loosened hair was itself combed into an appearance of filaments of blue-gray air. However, it is in the nature of smoke to go on rising, so that my master's fascination with this singular spectacle of hair and tangled smoke compels him, lest he miss any phase of its development, steadily to lift his gaze. His eyes, first level on her hips, move up her back, her shoulders, and along her neck. And it was after his concentrated stare that he had completed the ascent of her neck, and was focused on the very crown of her head, that he suddenly let out an involuntary gasp of surprise. For there, on the very summit of the lady whose he had promised to love and cherish till death did them part, was a large round patch of baldness. That unexpected nakedness, catching the clear spring sunshine, threw back the light and shone with an utmost braggart self-confidence. My master's eyes remained fixed open in such this dazzling discovery, and, disregarding the danger of such brightness to his own uncovered retinal tissue, he continues to goggle at her skin-bright mirror. The image that then immediately shot into my master's mind was that the dish on which stood the tapers that, before the altar, in the household shrine handed down in his family for untold generations. My master's family belongs to the Shin sect of Buddhism, a sect in which it is the most established custom to lay out substantial sums, more indeed than most of its adherents can afford, on household shrines. My master suddenly remembers how, when he was a very small boy, he first saw the shrine in his family's safe room. It was a miniature shrine, somber through thickly gilded, in which a brass taper dish was hanging. From the burning taper a faint light shone, even in the daytime, on the rounded dish, bright against the shrine's general darkness. That image of the shining dish, seen in his childhood time and time again, leaped back into his mind as he gazed at his wife's bald patch. But that first remembrance quickly vanished, to be replaced by the memories of the pigeons at the Kannon Temple in Asakusa. There seems no obvious connection between temples and temple doves and Mrs. Nee's gleaming scalp, but in my master's mind the association of images is clear and very close. It again is an association deriving from his early childhood. Whenever then he was taken to that temple, he would buy peas for the pigeons. The peas cost less than a farthing a saucer. The saucers, made of an unglazed reddish clay, were remarkably similar, both in size and color, to his wife's bare patch. Astonishingly similar. Would the words escape his lips in a tone of an awed wonder. "What is?" says his wife without even turning towards him. "What is? There's a big bald patch on the crown of your head. Did you know?" "Yes," she answers, still not interrupting her sewing. She seems not the least embarrassed by this discovery, a model wife, at least in point of imperturbability. Was it there before we married, or did it crop up later?" Though my master does not come out with an open accusation, he clearly sounds as if he would regard himself as having been tricked into marriage if the bald patch was in fact present in her maidenhood. "I don't remember when I got it. Not that it matters. Whatever the difference could a bald patch make?" "Quite a philosopher, isn't she just?" "Not that it matters. But it's your own hair that we are talking about." My master speaks with a certain sharpness. "It's just because it's my own hair that it doesn't matter." An effective answer, but she may have been feeling slightly self-conscious, for she lifted her right hand gently to stroke the spot. "Oh dear," she said, "it's got much bigger. I hadn't realized that." Her tone conceded that the patch was larger than would be normal at her age, and now, driven onto the defensive, she added, "Once one starts doing one's hair in the married style, the strand at the crown come under a very real strain. All married women lose hair from the top of the head." "If all married women lost hair at your rate, by the time they were 40 they'll be bald as a kettle. You must have caught some kind of disease. Maybe it's contagious. You'd better go around and have it looked at by Dr. Amaki before things go too far," says my master, carefully looking at his own head. "That's all very well, but what about you? White hairs in your nostrils. If baldness is contagious, white hairs will be catching." Mrs. Nees begins to go over to the attack. "A single white hair in the nostril is obviously harmless, and it doesn't even show. But fox mange on the crown of the head cannot be ignored. It is, especially in the case of a young woman, positively unsightly. It's a deformity. If you think I'm deformed, why did you marry me? It was you who wanted the marriage, yet now you call me deformed? For the simple reason that I didn't know. Indeed, I was unaware of your condition until this very day. If you want to make an issue of it, why didn't you reveal your naked scalp to me before we got married? What a silly thing to say! Where in the world would you find a place where girls have to show their scalps before they could get married? Well, the baldness might be tolerable, but you are also uncommonly dumpy, and that is certainly unsightly. There's never been anything hidden about my height. You knew perfectly well when you married me that I'm slightly on the short side. Of course I knew, and I thought you might extend a bit, but that's why I married you. How could one grow taller after the age of 20? Are you trying to make a fool of me, eh? She drops the sleeveless jacket and twisting around to face her husband, giving him a threatening look as if to say, "Now watch your step. You go too far, and you will be sorry." There is surely no law forbidding people from growing taller after the age of 20. I cherish a faint hope that if I fed you up on decent food, you might prolong yourself. With every appearance of meaning what he said, my master was about to develop his curious reasoning, when he is cut off by a sharp ringing of the doorbell, followed by a loud shout of, "Hello!" Snuffling after the scent of that shepherd's purse on the roof, the dogged Sōseki seems at last to have tracked down Sneeze's den. My master's wife, temporarily postponing the domestic row, snatches up the jacket and her sewing box and vanishes into an inner room. My master scrabbles his grey blanket up into a ball and slings it into the study. The maid brings in the visitor's card and gives it to my master, who, having read it, looks a little surprised. Then, having told the maid to show the visitor in, he goes off into the lavatory with the card still clasped in his hand. If it is beyond one's comprehension that he should thus suddenly take to the loo, it is more difficult to explain why he should have taken with him the visiting card of Suzuki Tojiro. It is, in any case, very hard luck on the soul that visiting card that it should have to accompany him to the noisome place. The maid deposits a printed cotton cushion on the floor in front of the alcove recess, invites the guest to be seated in that place of honor, and then removes herself. Suzuki first inspects the room. He begins by examining the scroll displays in the alcove. Its Chinese characters, allegedly written by Mokuan, that master calligrapher of the Zen sect, are, of course, fakes, but they stated that the flowers are in bloom and that spring is come to all the world. He next turned his attention to some early flowering cherry blossoms arranged in one of those celadon vases, which turn out cheap in Kyoto. Then, when his roving glance chances to fall upon the cushion provided for his particular convenience, what should he find but planted serenely smack in its center a squatting cat? I need hardly that the cat in question is my lordly self. It was at this point that the first quick tremor of tension, a ripple so small it did not show on his face, quaked in Suzuki's mind. That cushion had undoubtedly been provided for himself, but before he could sit down on it, some strange animal, without so much as by your leave, had dispossessed him of the seat of honor, and now lay crouched upon it with an air of firm self-confidence. This was the first consideration to disturb the composure of his mind. In point of fact, that cushion remained unoccupied. Suzuki would probably have sought to demonstrate his modesty by resting his rump on the hard mat floor until such time as my master himself invited to its transfer to the comfort of the cushion. So who the hell is this that has so blithely appropriated the cushion which was destined sooner or later to have eased Suzuki's buttocks? Had the interloper been a human being, he might well have given way, but to preempted by a mere cat, that is intolerable. It is also a little unpleasant. This minor animality of his dissertation is the second consideration to disturb the composure of Suzuki's mind. There was moreover something singularly irritating about the very attitude of the cat. Without the least small twitch sign of apology, the cat sits arrogantly on the cushion it has filched, and with a cold glitter in its unamiable eye stares up into Suzuki's face as if to say, "And who the hell are you?" This is the third consideration to ruffle Suzuki's composure. Of course, if he's really irked, he ought to jerk me off the cushion by the scruff of my neck, but he doesn't. He just watches me in silence. It is inconceivable that any creature as massive and muscular a man could be so afraid of a cat as not to dare to bring crude force to bear in any clash of wills. So why doesn't Suzuki express his dislikes by turfing me off the cushion with summary dispatch? The reason is, I think, that Suzuki is inhibited by his own conception of the conduct of a proper man. When it comes to the use of force, any child 3 feet tall can, but will, fling me about quite easily. But a grown man, even Suzuki Tojiro, Goldfield's right-hand man, cannot bring himself to raise a finger against this supreme cat deity ensconced upon the holy ground of a cotton cushion 2 feet square. 1 second, I see some new guests. I would like to say hello to you all. Hello, Cardia. Nice to meet you. Hello, Alina. Nice to meet you too. Hello, very good morning to all of you. Hello. Hello, Ando-san. Good morning. Thank you for dropping by and to listen to me read. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. It really means a lot to me that you guys are here. I really appreciate it. Oh, hello Twitch. Hello. Let me see. Who is it? Smells like chocobo. It's Cardia. Nice to meet you, Cardia. I love that username. That's so good. Thank you. Thank you so much for dropping by. Hello, good morning, Cardia. Hello, healer DPS1. If you are in this room, please identify yourself. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. I really do. This is amazing. Yeah. Was that you, healer DPS? Thank you so much for dropping by. I really appreciate it. Really, I really do. Oh, oh my god. What a fine morning. What a fine Saturday morning. Yeah? Oh, thank you so much, Alina. Thank you. Thank you so much. Alrighty. Alright, let me continue the book. Good morning to everyone. Good morning, good morning. I really appreciate everyone's attendance, whether you came in just now or came in on time. Hey, as long as you are here. Good morning, Waffles Abdul. Good morning. Hope you're having a wonderful morning and a wonderful Saturday. Oh, thank you so much. I'm having a great time. I'm reading a book that I really enjoy. Um, I am I'm reading a book that I enjoy. I love reading to people and I love interacting with all of you. And I'm very happy that you guys decided to drop by on this Saturday morning. It's a slow morning, but I'm enjoying it so far, and I hope you guys are enjoying the reading as well. Um, I'm so sorry. Sometimes I like read really fast because I get really nervous, or when I mess some certain words or sentence and I repeat them. I try my very best to not do that. But yes, good morning, everyone. I'm very thankful for all of your attendance. Um, just a short chats right now. If you are interested in more reading sessions, I do readings every alternate days. So I don't really set like on Monday, Tuesday, or something like that. I just do it alternate days. So today is Saturday, then my next one will be on Monday. Unless I can't do it, then I will change the days. So I do my readings on alternate days, 10 a.m. GMT plus 8. And if you're interested in this concept, please give me a follow and check out my stream schedule to find out more. Later on, after we finish chapter 1 of volume 2, we are going to Frog P3S. So hopefully y'all will stay and watch that as well. It's gonna be fun, alright? Hello, Novarika. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Thank you for dropping by. Truly. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Aw, that's so sweet. Alrighty. Let's continue the book reading. Let's do it. Oh, thank you for hugging me. Thank you. Reva. Yeah, stay to see angry Nuna content. I can show you my rating face right now. All right. This is this is my rating face. This is this is my rating face. Oh. This is my reading face. Oh my god. Alright, let's continue. Even though there were no witnesses, a man would regard it as beneath his dignity to scuffle with a cat for possession of a cushion. One would make oneself ridiculous, even a figure of farce, if one degraded oneself to the level of arguing with a cat. For Suzuki, the price of this human estimate to human dignity is to endure a certain amount of his discomfort in the nates, but precisely because he feels he must endure it, his hatred of the cat is proportionately increased. When every now and then He looks at me, his face exudes distaste. Since I find it amusing to see such a wry distortion of his features, I do my very best to maintain an air of innocence and resist the temptation to laugh. While this pantomime was still going on, my master left the lavatory and, having tidied himself up, came in and sat down. Hello. Hang on. Hello, he said. Since the visiting card is no longer in his hand, the name of Suzuki Tojuro must have been condemned to penal servitude for life in that evil-smelling place. Almost before I could feel sorry for the visiting card's ill luck, my master, saying, "Oh, you!" grabs me by the scruff of my neck and hurls me out to the land with a bang on the veranda. "Do take this cushion. You are quite a stranger. When did you come up to Tokyo?" My master offers the cushion to his old friend, and Suzuki, having turned it cat-side down, dumps himself upon it. "As I've been so busy, I haven't to let you know, but I recently transferred back to our main office in Tokyo." Sorry, I need to sit properly. Oh my god. That's splendid. We haven't seen each other for quite a long while. This must be the first time since you went off to the provinces. Yes, nearly 10 years ago. Actually, I did sometimes come up to Tokyo, but as I was always flooded with business commitments, I simply couldn't manage to get around to see you. I do hope you won't think too badly of me, but unlike your own profession, a business firm is honestly very busy. 10 years makes big changes, observed my master, looking Suzuki up and down, his hair neatly parted. He wears an English-made tweed suit and livened by a gaudy tie. A bright gold chain, a bright gold watch chain glitters from his waistcoat. All these sartorial touches makes it hard to credit that this can be one of Sneeze's friend. Well, one gets on indeed. I'm now virtually obliged to sport such things as this. Suzuki seems a little self-conscious about the vulgarly fashionable display of his watch chain. Is that thing real? My master possessed his question with a minimum of tact. Solid gold, 18 carat, Suzuki answered, smilingly smug. You too, he continued, seem to have aged. Am I right in thinking you have children now? One, am I right? No. Two? No. What more? Three, then is it? Yes, I have 3 children now, and I don't know how many more come in the future. Still as whimsical as ever. How old is your eldest? Quite big, I suppose. Yes, I'm not quite sure how old, but probably 6 or 7. Suzuki laughs. It must be pleasant to be a teacher. Everything's so free and easy. I wish I too had taken up teaching. Just you try. You'll be sorry in 3 days. I don't know. It seems a good kind of life. Refined and not too stressful. Plenty of spare time. And the opportunity to really study one's own special interest. Being a businessman is not bad either, though at my present level things aren't particularly satisfactory. If one becomes a businessman, one has to get to the top. Anywhere lower on the ladder, you have to go around spouting idiotic flatteries and drinking sake with the boss when there's nothing you want less. Altogether, it's a stupid way of life. Ever since my school day, I've always taken a scorn to businessmen. They'll do anything for money. They are, after all, what they used to be called in the good old days, the very dregs of society. My master, with a businessman right in front of him, indulges in tactlessness. Oh, have a heart. They aren't always like that. Admittedly, there's a certain coarseness about them, for there's no point in even trying to be a businessman unless your love for money is so absolute that you are ready to accompany it on the walk to a double suicide. For money, believe you me, is a hard mistress. None of her lovers are let off lightly. As a matter of fact, I've just been visiting a businessman, and according to him, the only way to succeed is to practice the triangle technique. Try to escape your obligations, annihilate your kindly feelings, and get yourself the sense of shame. Triangle. Get it? Jolly clever, don't you think? What awful fathead told you that? He's no fathead. Sharp, smart as sorry. He's no fathead. Smart as a whip, in fact, and increasingly respected in the business circles. I rather fancy you know him. He lives up a side street, just around the corner. You mean that frightful Goldfield? Goodness me, you're really getting worked up. He only meant it, as a kind of a joke. It's simply a way of summarizing the fact that to make money one must go through hell, so please don't take the joke too seriously. His triangle technique may I grant be a joke, but let's say it's screamingly funny. But what about his wife and his nauseating nose? If you have been to their house, you could hardly have avoided colliding with the beak. Ah, Mrs. Goldfield. She seems a sensible woman of broad understanding. Damn her understanding! I'm talking about her nose. Her nose, Suzuki, is positively monstrosity. On the other day, I composed a high-tie poem about it. What's the dickens is a high-tie poem? Do you mean you've never heard of the current experiment in the composition of extended haiku? You do seem cut off from what's going on in this world. True. When one is as busy as I am, it's absolutely impossible to keep up with things like literature. Anyway, even as a lad, I never liked it much. Oh, everyone is here. Are you aware of the shape of Charlemagne's nose? You are indeed in a whimsical mood. Suzuki laughs quite naturally. Of course I haven't had the faintest idea of the shape of the Charlemagne's nose. Well, what about Wellington then? His troops used to call him Nosy, did you know that? Why on earth are you so batty about noses? Surely it doesn't matter if a nose happens to be round or pointed. Quite on the contrary, it matters very much. Do you know about Pascal? Questions. Am I supposed to be taking an exam or something? No, I don't know about Pascal. What did he do? He had this to say. What to say? Had Cleopatra's nose been a little shorter, the history of the world would have been changed. Did he now? Perhaps now you see why one can't afford to underestimate the importance of noses. All right. I'll be more careful in the future. By the way, I dropped in today because there's something I'd like to ask you. It's about a chap you used to teach, Avalon something or other. I can't remember his name, but I understand you and he see a lot of each other. You mean Colemoon? That's it, Colemoon. Well, I've really come to make inquiries about him. About a matrimonial matter? One might say that. You see, I called in earlier on the Goldfields. The nose herself came sniffling around here only the other day. Did she? Well, as a matter of fact, she mentioned that she had called. She said she had paid a visit in order to present her respect to Mr. Sneeze and to entreat his assistance in a matter of information, but that Waver House was present and made so many and such frivolous interruptions that she just got muddled. It was her own fault. coming around here with a nose like that? She spoke of you with this deepest respect. She's just regretful that the performance put on Weber House made it impossible to ask you certain personal questions about Cold Moon. She has therefore asked me to speak on her behalf. For what it's worth, I've never before played that part of an honest broker in matters of this sort. But if the two parties most directly concerned are not against the idea, it's not a bad thing to serve as a go-between and so bring about a marriage. Indeed, that reason for my present visit. How kind of you to call, commented my master somewhat acidly. But though he could not explain his feeling, he was inwardly a little moved by that phrase about two parties most directly concerned. Its slightly sentimental appeal made him feel as though a wraith of cold air had drifted through his sleeve on a hot and humid summer night. It is true that my master's character is based on so firm an inborn bedrock of cold reserve and obstinacy that he is, by nature, one of these world's wet blankets. Nevertheless, his nature is of a completely different type of that of the vicious, heartless products of modern civilization. The antique mold of his nature is clearly evidenced in the way in which he flares up at the slightest provocation. The sole reason for this barney with Madame Kong was that he could not stand her modern-day approach. But his flat dislike of the mother was no fault of the daughter. Similarly, because he abominates all businessmen, he finds Goldfield acutely distasteful. Yet here again, no blame can be laid on the daughter. Sneeze bears no real ill will toward her, and Cold Moon is his favorite pupil, and he loves that lad more deeply than he would a brother. If Suzuki is correct in his statement that the two parties most directly concerned do in fact love each other, then it would be an act unworthy of a gentleman even indirectly to hinder true love's course. Sneeze is quite convinced that he himself is a gentleman, so his only remaining question is whether Cold Moon and Miss Goldfield are in love. He must, if he is to amend his attitude, first be sure of the fact. Tell me, does that girl really want to marry Cold Moon? I don't care what Goldfields or the Nose feel about this matter, but what about the girl's own feelings? Well, you see, that is, I understand, well, yes, I suppose she does. Suzuki's answer is not exactly clear-cut. Thinking that all he had to do was to find out more about Cold Moon, he came unbriefed on Opula's view on the match, so even this slippery lad now finds himself in a bit of a jam. The word suppose implies some measure of uncertainty. My master, tactless as ever, not a man to be put off, goes in again like a bull at a gate. True enough, perhaps I should have expressed myself more clearly. Now, the daughter certainly has a certain inclination. Indeed, that's true. What? Oh yes, Mrs. Goldfield told me so herself, though I gather she sometimes says some awful things about Cold Moon. Who does? Do you mean the daughter? Yes. What impudence! The snip of a girl disparaging Cold Moon. Well, it can hardly mean that she cares for him. But that's just it. Odd you may think, but sometimes people do run down precisely those they love. I can't conceive that anyone would be so deranged as to behave like that. Such intricate convolutions of human nature are quite beyond my master's blunt and simple mind. In fact, the world is full of such people. Certainly that's how Mrs. Goldfield interprets her daughter's comments. She said to me, my daughter must have quite taken with that young Cold Moon, for I have heard her say things like He looks like a bewildered god. These revelations of the strangeness of human heart leave my master dumbstruck. Wide-eyed and wordless, he stares in astonishment at Suzuki as though he were some soothsayer wandered in from the street. Suzuki seems to have the mind to sense danger implicit in my master's unbelief, and fearful lest further discussion should wreck his whole approach, quickly changes the subject to aspects of the matter which even my master cannot fail to understand. A quick drink of tea. 2 seconds. I'm back. Consider these facts, he said. With her good looks and money, that a girl can marry almost where she chooses. Now Coleman may be a splendid fellow, but comparing their relative social positions... 1 second, sorry. But comparing their relative social positions, no such comparisons are always odious and could be taken as offensive. So let me put it this way, that in terms of personal means, the couple are obviously ill-matched. Surely then, you can see that if the Goldfields are so worried that they asked me to come round here and talk to you, that very fact indicates the strength and nature of their daughter's yearnings. One can't deny Suzuki's clever. He is relieved to notice that my master seems impressed by his latest line of argument, but realizing that the question of degree of bleeding in Miss Goldfield's heart is likely to be reopened if he allows the conversation to loiter on her feelings about Coleman, he concludes that the best way to complete his mission is to drive the discussion forward as quickly as possible. So you see, as I have just explained, the Goldfields aren't expecting money or property. What they would like instead is that Coleman should have some status of his own, and by status they mean the public's recognition of qualification that is symbolized in a senior degree. It is not that they are so stuck up to say that they only consider giving him their daughter if he holds a doctorate. You mustn't misunderstand them. Things got jumbled up the other day when Mrs. Goldfield called on you purely because Waverhouse chose to amuse himself with his usual display of verbal fireworks and distorting mirrors. No, please don't protest. I know it was none of your fault. Mrs. Goldfield spoke in admiration of you as a frank and honest man. I am certain that the blame and any awkwardness that may have arisen must be laid at Waverhouse's door. Anyway, you see, the nub of the matter is this. If Coleman can't get a doctorate, he would have independent status. People would naturally look up to Dr. Coleman, and the Goldfields would be proud of such a son-in-law. So, what are the chances of Coleman's making an early submission on his thesis and receiving his doctorate? You see, so far as the Goldfields themselves are concerned, they will be the last to demand a doctor's degree. They wouldn't even ask for a bachelor's, but they have to consider what the world and his wife will say. And when dealing with the world, one simply cannot be too careful. So, presented. The Goldfield's request for a doctorate seems not altogether unreasonable, and anything he deems not altogether unreasonable qualifies for my master's support. He feels inclined to act as Suzuki suggests, Suzuki, it is clear, can twiddle my masters around his artful little finger. I recognize my master is indeed a simple, honest man. Well, in that case, next time Coleman drops around, I'll urge him to get on with his thesis. However, I feel that I must first question closely to ascertain whether or not he really wants to marry the Goldfield girl. Question him closely. If you act with such meticulous formality, the business will never get settled. The quickest way to a happy ending is to sound his mind casually in the course of an ordinary conversation. To sound his mind? Yes, perhaps the word sound is not quite right since it can be thought to smack an indirection. Of course, I'm not suggesting deception of any kind, but what I meant is that you would understand the drift of his mind in this matter from simply talking with him about generalities. You might understand that I wouldn't unless I asked him point blank. Ah, well, I suppose that's up to you, but I don't think it would be reasonable to ruin a romance by slinging cold water on it, quite unnecessarily and even for fun, like Waver House. Perhaps one doesn't need actually to jostle them into marriage, but surely in matter of this sort, the two parties most directly concerned should be left undistracted by irrelevant outside influences to settle their future for themselves. So next time Coleman calls, try, please, not to interfere. Of course, I don't mean you yourself. I'm referring to a Waver House. Nobody emerges scatheless whom Waver House discusses. Since Suzuki could not very well speak ill of my master, he thus spoke bitterly against Waver House when talk of the devil who should come floating unexpectedly in on a spring breeze through the kitchen but Waver House himself. "Hello!" he said, throwing an accent onto the second syllable. "A visitor from the past. I haven't seen you in years, you know," he rattled on. Sneeze. Treats intimate friends like me with scant ceremony, shocking behavior. One ought to visit him roughly once a decade. Those sweet, for instance, you wouldn't get those if you called here often. Scanting all ceremony, Waver House reaches over and crams his mouth with a large piece of red bean sugar paste confection from the well-known Fujimura shop. Suzuki fidgets. My master grins. Waver House munches. As much as from the veranda, I watches this interlude. I realize that a good theater need not that depend upon speech, that high dramatic effect can be achieved with mime. The Zen sect practices instantaneous mental communications of truth from mind to mind in dialogues of silence. The damn show going on within the room is no doubt a version of that practice, and the dialogue, though briefly, sharply worded, it was, of course, Waver House who broke the silence. "I would thought, Suzuki, that you'd become a bird of permanent passage, always coming or going somewhere, but I see you have landed back." "The longer one lives, the greater the chance that something odd will turn up." Waver House babbles away to Suzuki with the same complete absence of reserve which characterizes his conversations with her master. Though they lodged together in their students' days, it would be normal for a man to address someone whom he hasn't seen for at least 10 years with a little more formality, except when that man is Waver House. That he pays not the least regard to the requirements of convention marks him out as either a superior soul or right down jovial, but which one cannot say. "That's a little hard. Aren't you being a trifle pessimistic?" commented Suzuki non-committally. but his way of fingering his watch chain betrayed a continuing unease. "Tell me, have you ever ridden on a tram?" My master shot this sudden and peculiar inquiry at Suzuki. "It seems that I've come here today simply to provide you two city wits with a laughing stock on which to hone your singular sense of humor. Though it's true that I'm very much from the provinces, I actually happen to own some 60 shares in the tram company of your precious city." "Well, that's not to be sneezed at. I myself once used to own 888 and a half of them, but I'm sorry to say that the vast majority have now been eaten by insects, so that I've nothing but one single half share left. If you had come up to Tokyo a little bit earlier, I would have gladly given you some 10 shares of that. Until very recently, had not got the moths had not yet got at it. What a sad misfortune." "I see. You haven't changed your personal style of ridicule. But joking apart, you're bound to do well if you just hang on to stocks of that quality. They cannot fail. Year after year they climb in value." "Quite right. Even half a share, provided one holds it for roughly 1,000 years, will end up making you so rich you'll need 3 strong rooms. You and I, razor-minded fellows with our senses keyed to the iconic inwardness of these stirring times, are, of course, keenly conscious of the significance of stocks. But what about poor Sneeze? Just look at him, to him," said Waverhouse, conferring on my master a look of withering pity. "Stocks are no more than just some vague kind of gilly flower." He helped himself to another piece of confectionery. His appetite is contagious, for my master too stretches out his arm towards the sweet dish. It is in the immutable nature of human world that positivity should triumph, that initiative be ate. I do not care 2 hoots about stocks or shares, but I do wish poor old Sorosaki had lived to ride, if only once, on a tram. With morose concentration, my master studies the pattern cut by his teeth in his half-eaten sweet. Had Sorosaki ever gotten into a tram, sure as egg is egg, he would have finished up at the end of the line in Shinagawa. He was an absent-minded man. He is better off where he is now, engraved upon a weight stone as the late and sainted natural man. At least he knows where he is. I had heard that Sorosaki had died. I'm sorry. He was a brainy chap, says Suzuki. Brainy, all right, Waverhouse chipped in. But when it comes to cooking rice, he was a positive imbecile. Every time it came round to Sorosaki's turn to do the cooking, I contrived to keep body and soul together by eating out on noodles. True, Sorosaki's rice had the peculiar characteristics of smelling burnt yet being undercooked. I, too, used to suffer. What's more, he had an odd way with the accompanying bean curds, uncooked and so cold that one could not eat them. Suzuki dredges up a grievances 10 years old. Even in those days, Niece was Sorosaki's closest friend. They used to trot off together every evening to gulp down rice cakes swamped in red bean soup, and as a proper and inevitable result, Niece is now a martyr to dyspepsia. As a matter of fact, since it was Niece who always guzzled most, he should by rights have predeceased his crony. What extraordinary chains of logic do run around in your contraption of mind? Anyway, remarked my master, there was nothing particularly reprehensible about my going out for sweet bean soup. As I remember it, your own evening expeditions took the form of haunting a graveyard in order to beat up a tombstone with a bamboo stick. You call it physical exercise, but that didn't save you from right old rap of the knuckles when the priest came out and caught you. In this exchange of student reminiscence, I thought my master's counter-swipe with the tombstone far more telling than that the dribble of soup from Waverhouse. Indeed, by his laughter, Waverhouse himself acknowledged the defeat. Indeed, he said, I well remember that priest. He told me I was thumping on noddles of the dear departed which would disturb their sleep, so would I please deceased. All I did was to make some practice passes with a bamboo wand, but General Sōseki here, training his body with restless drills, engaged those stones in violent personal combat. I recall that on one occasion he wrestled loose and overthrew 3 monuments of assorted sizes. That did annoy the priest. He got quite fierce about it, insisting that I restore my victims to their original positions. I asked him to hold his horses for a moment while I went and hired some navvies for the job, but he wouldn't hear it. Navvies, he said, won't do. Only your own hands can purge the evil they have done. The dead will accept no penitence but yours. And what sight you were, moaning and groaning through those muddy puddles in a calico shirt and a loincloth tied with strings. And I remember you, with a coldly serious face, you stood and sketched me as I struggled with those goddamn stones. Such utter heartlessness. I'm very slow to anger, but at that time, from the bottom of my heart, I ached to kill you for your insultingly dispassionate detachment. I can still remember what you said that day. Can you? I wonder. How could one remember what was said 10 years ago? I do, however, recall the words engraved on one of the stones. Returning Fountain Hall, Lord Yellow Crane of the Great Disease, January 1776. The stone, moreover, was antique and elegant. I was tempted to make off with it. Its general style was Gothic and chimed entrancingly with those aesthetic principles I cherish. Hello, Ichan. Nice to meet you. Thank you for dropping by on this reading. Chime entrancingly with those aesthetic principles I cherish. Waverhouse is off again, flaunting his game-rack knowledge of aesthetics. Whoever heard of Japanese Gothic from 1776? That's as may be, but listen to what you said. These are your very words. Quote, since I propose to devote my days to the study of aesthetics, I must, for future reference, grasp each and every opportunity to set down upon my paper any event of interest in this universe which comes before my eyes. Unquote. What's more, you were kind enough to dispassionately add, quote, a man such as I, one totally and exclusively committed to pursuit of learning, cannot permit himself to the luxury of such personal feelings as those of pity or compassion. I could have done you in such nonchalance, but all I did, in fact, was to grab your sketchbook with my muddied hand and rip the thing to ribbons. And it was most precisely that moment that my talents as a creative artist, up until then widely accepted as remarkably promising, was nipped in the bud, never to bloom again. I have my own whole skeleton of bones still to pick with you. Don't be so daft. If anyone's entitled to a grudge, it's me. Waverhouse, as far as my mind can reach, has always been a windbag. My master, having munched his sweet to extinction, rejoins the conversation. He never means what he says, and has never known to have kept a promise. Press hard for an explanation. He never apologizes but trots out endless pretexts and prevarications. Once when the myrtles were in bloom in the temple yard, he told me that he would complete a treatise he was writing on those same old cherished principles of aesthetics before the flowers fell. Impossible, I said. Can you guess his answer? He claimed, despite appearances, to be the iron will. If you doubt my word, he said, just name your bet. I took him upon it, and we agreed that the loser should stand a dinner at the Western restaurant over in Kanda. I took the bet because I was certain that he would never get his writing done in time, but I confessed that not in fact having the cash to pay for the dinner if I lost. I remained a little nervous that he still might work a miracle. Anyway, he showed up. He showed no signs of getting down to work. A week went by, 3 weeks went by, and still he had not written a single page. At last, the flowers of the myrtle fell, and though the tree stood empty, River House stood calm. Looking forward to my Western meal, I pressed our friend to meet his obligation. Not to put too fine a point upon his answer, he told me to get lost. No doubt, chimed Suzuki. He offered this, that, and the other reason? Indeed he did. The bare-faced rogue. You cannot imagine how obstinate he was. Say what you will, he said, about my other flaws and faults. I admit them all and readily, but the fact remains that in strength of will I'm stronger than a pack of you. Do you mean, asked Wibblehouse himself, that having written nothing I still claim not to have lost the bet? Of course you did. You said the bet was not about finishing the treatise, but about your iron will. And in respect of that iron quality, so you most wilfully informed me, you will yield to none. You conceded that your memory might be poor, so poor indeed that the next day forgotten that you intended to write a paper on the principles of aesthetics, but you maintain that your will to write it remained ferric to the core. The fault lay in your memory, not in your will. So though the myrtle flowers were fallen and the treatise still unwritten, you made it painfully clear that you saw no reason why you should come across with my dinner. Now, that's very interesting, and so very typical of Waverhouse. I can't see what in that rather tedious story would so particularly interest Suzuki, but the tone of his comment is marked differently from that which he used from before Waverhouse came in. Perhaps such variousness is a sign of a clever man. Not in the least interesting, my master interjects a sharpish contradiction. It distresses me that you should still be feeling so put out about it, but is it not that the very reason that I've had men out with lanterns searching high and low for those peacock tongues I promise you? Don't be so huffy, Sneeze. Just wait a while, and all shall be made up. Incidentally, this talk about writing treaties remind me that I've called today with some specially odd news. Since you bring round odd news every time you visit, I'll take that statement with a pinch of salt. But today's odd news is truly sensational. Cross my heart and hope to die. It's stunning. Whole Moon started writing his thesis. What about that? Since in his own quaint way, Coleman has a fairly elevated opinion of himself, I wouldn't have expected him to engage in such a mundane, tasteless chore as getting a thesis actually written. But it appears yeah, moving. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for the reminder. Hang on, give me 1 second, I'm gonna drink. Alright, I'm back. Thank you for the reminder. Thank you. Hello, Ichan Akira. Thank you. Let me see. That he too is tainted with worldly ambition. Now, don't you think that odd? You'd better let the Goldfield woman know that she may now start dreaming of decking her family tree with a full-blown doctor of acorns. At the first mention of Coal Moon, Suzuki begins jerking his chin and twitching his eyes at my master in silent pleas that nothing should be said in their recent conversation. My master fails to notice these entreating governessons. A short while back, under the suasion of Suzuki's moral lecture, he had felt sufficiently sorry for the lovelorn daughter not to indulge his unabated antipathy toward her mother. But as soon as Waverhouse referred to Madame Conk, his recollection of his recent row with the virago came flooding back in full spate. That the row had its comic aspect did not make it any less provoking, but the news that Coleman had started to write his thesis, that was really marvelous. He was grateful to Waverhouse, who had more than fulfilled his boast of having something startling to say, for bringing such welcome present. It was indeed a stunning piece of news, stunning but singularly pleasant. It doesn't greatly matter one way or the other whether Coleman marries the girl, but it is certainly an excellent thing for the lad to get his doctorate. In surprising ways my master knows himself, and would with absolute humility accept that not a tear need fall if a botched wooden statue is left undecorated to rot away in some dark back corner of a sculpture shop. But when a statue is superbly carved, when its basic quality is noble, then no effort should be spared and no time wasted in ensuring that it be given gilding with appropriate splendor. Are you really telling me that Coleman started writing? My master inquires eagerly, paying no attention at all to jittering Suzuki. What suspicious mind you've got! Don't you ever believe anything I tell you? Yes, he has started, but I regret I cannot tell you whether his thesis will be concerned with stability of acorns or with the mechanics of hanging. Whatever the subject, a Coleman thesis must be a glorious snub for the nose. Suzuki had been getting more and more restive as Waverhouse repeats and develops his discourteous references to Madame Conk. Waverhouse, not noticing, sails unconcernedly on. I have, he said, carried out some further research into noses, and am happy to advise you of an interesting treatment of the subject in the Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy Gentleman. Had Sterne but known of that mountain of relevant material, how greatly it would have helped him. The sadness of chronology. To think that the staggering organ, eminently qualified as it is to gain immortal nose fame, should be born, like many other nosegay, to blush unseen. One's heart is filled with an immense compassion. When next it thrusts itself upon us, I shall sketch that vastly promontory of flesh for my future reference in the study of aesthetics. There's no restraining Waverhouse. But I hear that Goldfield girl is yearning to be Coleman's bride. My master makes a fair summary of Suzuki's presentation, while the latter annoyance twitching from every feature on his face and electric messages flashing from his eyes signals desperately for disengagement. My master, like some non-conducting substance, remains immune to these distraught discharges. How bizarre! It strains the mind to think that the daughter of such a man might fall in love. Not, I would imagine, that it could be love of any quality, just rubbing noses. Whatever its nature, my master commented. Let's hope that Coleman marries her. What's that? Says Waverhouse. Who's now hoping marries her?
Only that the other day you were dead again in such disastrous match. Have you gone soft or something? It's not a matter of going soft. I never go soft, but something's happened? That's it, isn't it? Now look here, Suzuki. Since you are some kind of a lower life form of the business jungle, let me give you a piece of advice to guide your future slitherings. It's with reference to that grunting Goldfield and the piglet daughter. The idea that the idea that reasonable persons might be called upon to treat that creature with respect due to the wife of the Mr. Avalon Coleman, that talented national figure. Why, man, that thing's impossible. There'll be no more balance each other. Self a friend to Coleman could stand by and not speak against the folly of such misalliance. Surely, Suzuki, even you looking at it as a businessman, can you sense in what I'm saying? What a kerfuffle you do still manage to kick up. Always stirring something, huh? You haven't changed one little bit in all these 10 years. Really, it's remarkable. Suzuki tries to slither around the question. Since you compliment me as remarkable, let me display some more remarkable dollops of learning appropriate to this case. The ancient Greeks set very high store by physical prowess and encourage its pursuit by awarding valuable prizes to the winners of all sorts of athletic contests. But strangely enough, there is no record that they ever offered prizes for intellectual prowess. Until recently, these curious circumstances incessantly puzzled me. 1 second, please. Alright. Sorry, I'm back. I see, says Suzuki, still trying to make himself agreeable. That does seem odd. However, just the other day, a chance in the course of my researches into aesthetics to light upon the explanation. Years of accumulated worrying fell instantly away from me, and in that blessed trice, as though this burden of all errors and earthly delusions, I found myself transported to the pure realm of infinite enlightenment, where my soul rejoiced in its transcendence of the world and its attainment of Hansophic self-awareness. Waverhouse departs on such flight of gongoristic drivel that even the toading Suzuki allows his face to slip into lineaments of having had enough. He's at it again, may be read in my master's resigned expression. With eyes cast down, he sits there tapping kang 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 on the rim of the cake dish with his ivory chopsticks. Now I disconcerted Waverhouse blather on. 1 second, please. Oh, sorry. And to whom do you think we are indebted for that brilliant logical analysis which, by its simple explanation of this seeming anomaly, has rescued us forever from the dark abyss of doubt? It was the famous Greek philosopher, the greatest of all scholars since scholarships began, the renowned founder of the peripatetic school, Aristotle himself. His explanation, I say, sneezed. Please stop flogging that cake dish and pay a little bit more attention. may be summarized thus: the prizes awarded at Greek contests were more than the performances that earned them, for the prizes were intended not to stimulate effort but to reward achievement. Consequently, if one to give a prize for intellectual prowess, for knowledge in itself, one would have to find something to award which was more valuable than knowledge. But knowledge already is the rarest gem in the world. The Greeks, unknowing to debase the value of knowledge, piled up the chests of all crammed with gold. To the height of Mount Olympus they gathered in the wealth of Croesus, and wealth beyond that wealth, but in the end they recognize that the value of knowledge cannot be matched, let alone exceeded. So masters of reasons that they were, they decided that the prize should be nothing at all. From this, Suzuki, I trust you will have learned that whatever the color of your money, it is worthless stuff compared with learning. Let us accordingly apply this revealed truth, this fundamental principle, to the particular problem that has arisen today. Surely you are bound to see that gold feels merely a paperman, a bill of exchange with eyes and a nose scrawled onto it. If I may put it epigrammatically, the man's no more than an animated banknote, and if his money in motion, currency, might say, his daughter's nothing but a circulating promissory note. In contrast, now, let us consider Coleman. With consummate ease he graduated with the best degree of his year from the highest seat of learning in our hand. On leaving the Imperial University, he showed no sign of slackening in effort. On the contrary, fiddling with the antique fastening strings of his short surcoat, he devoted himself both day and night to intensive study of the thorny problem of the stability of acorns. And in addition to all that, this indefatigable servant of learning is just about to publish a thesis which unquestionably will embody intellectual concepts besides whose depth, originality, and scope, those adumbrated by the great Lord Kelvin, must pale into insignificance. It is true he was concerned in an abortive attempt at suicide, but that was no more than a passing fancy of a common among lads of spirits. Certainly, that incident can cast no serious doubts upon his reputation as a vast repository of learning and intelligence. If I may adapt to Coleman's case of one of my own earlier turns of phrase, I should describe him as a circulating library. He is a high explosive shell, perhaps only at 28 centimeters, but compactly charged with knowledge. And when at the properly chosen time, this projectile makes its impact upon the world of learning, then if it detonates, detonate it will. Waverhouse unbelievably seems to have run out of steam. Confused by his own jumble of metaphors, he almost flinches, and his flow of language peters pointlessly out. As the saying goes, the dragon's head of his opening remarks has dwindled down to a snake's tail of an ending. However, though Waverhouse may falter, he is unlikely to shut up. In a matter of seconds, he goes off again. In that inevitable explosion, things like promissory notes, though there be thousands of them, will all be blasted into dust. It follows that for Coleman, such a female simply will not do. I cannot consent to so ill-suited an alliance. It would be as though an elephant, that wisest and most noble of all animals, were to marry the greediest greediest piglet of a greedy pharaoh. With a final burst of speed, Waverhouse pressed the tape. That's so, isn't it, Sneeze? My master, silent, resumed his melancholy tapping on the cake dish. Looking a bit depressed and obviously at his wit's end for a suitable answer, Suzuki mumbled something about not being able to entirely agree. His position is indeed delicate. His hands, as it were, are still wet from blood from his verbal assassination, barely a half-hour back of Waverhouse character, and a man as outrageously tactless as my master might at any moment come straight out of anything. Suzuki's soundest tactic is to receive, and if possible, smother the Waverhouse attack, and then, and in the general confusion, to wriggle away to safety as quickly as he can. Suzuki is clever, very much a man cast in the modern mold. He seeks to avoid head-on collision and considers it positively medieval to enter into arguments that of their nature can have no practical results. In his opinion, the purpose of life is not to talk but to act. In events develop as one wishes, then life, its purpose thus fulfilled, is good. But if events not only one develop as one wishes, but do so without difficulties, frets, or altercations, then life, its purpose, slitheringly fulfilled, is paradisal. Suzuki's unwavering devotion to this Elysian principle is slithering had brought him great success in business world he had entered after graduating from the university. It had brought him a watch of 18-karat gold. It had brought him a request from the goldfields that he should do them a small favor. It had even enabled him to maneuver Sneeze 9/10 of the way toward doing what the goldfields wishes. Then Waverhouse descended upon the scene, out of the ordinary, careless of all conventions, totally eccentric. He manifests himself as an incarnation of capriciousness, operating in accordance with a psychological pattern never previously observed in the human creature. No wonder that Suzuki feels a bit bewildered. Though Suzuki's principle was invented by a variety of clever gentlemen seeking success in Meiji circumstances, its prime practitioner is Suzuki Tojuro himself, and it is consequently he who is most signally stumped when the principle prove inapplicable. It's only because you are out of your depth, Waverhouse pressed on, that you sit there looking supercilious and offer no more useful contribution than the cool comment that you can't entirely agree. But if you had been here the other day when the nose came throwing her weight, you would have felt like throwing up. It's true, Sneeze, isn't it? Go on, tell him. I thought you handled the situation magnificently. But I'm told, my master smirked, that my conduct on that occasion created a more favorable impression than did yours. The answering laugh was a mixture of pity and scorn. What incredible self-confidence! I begin to understand how you managed to sail along at school unperturbed by the mockery of your colleagues and your pupils' shouts of savagety. In matters of willpower, I am a match of anyone. But when it comes to sheer nerve, I'm just not even in your class. I humble myself in the presence of such staggering self-confidence. Why on earth should I be moved by such puerile carrying-ons? Their grumbles don't scare me, though Saint Beuve was perhaps the greatest of all critics. His lecture at Sorbonne proved so unpopular that whenever he walked into the streets, he was obliged to carry a dagger up his sleeve to defend himself against the attacks from students. Similarly,
Bruni tears, lectures, attacks, the novels of Zola. Come off it, Sneeze. You're not a professor or a university lecturer. For a mere teacher of English reader to start comparing himself with world-famous professors is like Minnow demanding to be treated as a whale. If you keep on saying things like that, you're bound to be laughed at. That's just your opinion. As I see it, Sunbooth and I, considered as scholars, are of roughly of the same standard. We're a fantastic self-esteem. But if I were you, I would give up any idea of going around with a dagger. You might cut yourself. Of course, if university professors do arm with dirks, it might be reasonable for a teacher of English reader to carry a folding penknife. But even so, any edged tool is dangerous. What you ought to do is toddle along the Nakamise Arcade down the Asakusa and get yourself a toy pop gun. You could carry it slung on your shoulder. You'll make a charming picture. What do you think, Suzuki? Suzuki is feeling better, relieved, but the conversation has at long last veered away from the subject of the goldfields. He feels it's safe to venture a few, and preferably flattering sentences. As it always was, it's been great fun to take part again in such lively but good-natured conversation and discussion. Not having seen you two for a full 10 years, I feel as though I had just walked back into our spacious, sunny landscape out of some dark and narrow alley. And you'll understand, conversations among business associates tend to be pretty tricky. One has to watch one's step, constantly minding one's P's and Q's, and ever alert for a stab in the back. The never-ending worry and strain is genuinely painful, but I myself enjoy frank and open conversation. And it's marvelous to be talking again with one student's chum and in the same old style of uninhibited honesty. I am delighted that my visit brought me the added and unexpected pleasure of running into Waverhouse. Well, he concluded, I must leave you now. I've got a man to meet. Having delivered himself to these literary sentences, Suzuki was beginning to lever himself loose from my cushion. Then, Waverhouse remarked, I'll come along too. They're waiting for me at the Entertainment Temperance Unions over the Nihonbashi. Let's run together. Fine, said Suzuki. Part of the way we'll be going in the same direction. So arm in arm, they left. That is the end of Chapter 1, Volume 2 of I Am a Cat. We did it! We end the first chapter of Volume 2 today. Oh my god, I'm so relieved. Oh my god, how's my reading today, by the way, guys? Thank you so much for attending. I'm really happy to see all of you here today once again, everyone. Once again, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for attending my, oh my god, thank you so much for attending my reading session as usual. I love seeing all of you, seriously. This really means a lot to me, and I'm very grateful and happy that you guys are here in game and on my Twitch as well. Ichan, Akira, Tatamina, Reva Piano, Healer DPS1, what a great name, and Smells Like Chocobo is amazing Twitch name. Thank you all of you for dropping a comment in my stream chat, dropping a
thank you so much for just being here with me today and on every other alternate days. Once again, I repeat myself. Uh, every alternate days, I do a reading session at 10 a.m. GMT plus 8. Every alternate days. So today is Saturday. My next one will be on next Monday, 10 a.m. at GMT plus 8. We will be continuing I Am a Cat by Natsume Sōseki, but after that we will read some other books as well. Thank you so much for attending. I am really thankful for your attendance. I'm very nervous now. I'm not a very good speaker. I just read, but thank you. And I will be ending my stream right now. But immediately I'll be back on stream because today Deanne, Beat, Coco, and I have a mission to for some progging, huh? Let's see. So yeah, basically I do readings on alternate mornings, but I also stream on a daily basis, almost on a daily basis, on just like random adventures in game, and mostly like raiding content and like progging content, stuff like that. So hopefully, after I end this current stream, y'all will stay on with me for more silly content with my friends. Just for a preview of my raiding adventure later. This will be my expression the entire time. So yeah, this will be my raiding expression. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you in about 2-3 minutes. Thank you, and please stay with me on today's stream. We will go on a raiding adventure with my friends. Thank you. I always end my stream with a little goodbye, and I will see you in about 2 minutes. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys in 2 minutes. Bye.